Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the next episode of the BRIO in the Box podcast.
Back in the closet.
We're back in the closet. This is a better setup.
Yeah.
We'll tour around. Maybe we'll take the podcast on the road.
We've done it in a hotel room before.
We have. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, we're back in the closet.
Yep.
Nice setup. Mm-hmm. What's new? What's going on? What have we been up to?
Well, we're always looking to try new things and get crazy and biohack, if you will.
Challenge ourselves in different ways. Yeah.
That's kind of a weird word. I don't know if I like the biohacking term, but we're always experimenting. And currently, our current experiment is no phones in the bedroom, which has been a weird change. It
started between me and Atlas. And it mostly started because I wanted him to get his phone out of his bedroom.
Yeah.
He's 14. He's in grade 9. I don't think any young teenager has any business needing or having their phone in their bedroom.
Yeah.
I kind of regret giving him unrestricted access to a smartphone as young as we did. So I'm like, probably impairing his sleep and therefore his performance and mental health and, neurological development. So, but I felt like a bit of a hypocrite if I was like, you can't have your phone in your bedroom anymore. If I have my phone in my bedroom all the time. Yeah. I do like to read on my Kindle app on my phone. But let's be honest, sometimes it's more scrolling of Instagram and Reddit than it is actually reading smart stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I could probably stand to do a little challenge to myself as well to not have my phone in the bedroom. So Atlas and I, okay, let's do it for October. And then said, do you want to do it too? Optional, but he's
sure,
like,
whatever.
Of course. Sure, whatever.
I usually go along with whatever crazy experiments you're doing. It's another experiment to see if it makes a difference or not. I haven't read an actual physical book since I can remember. I read every single day, but it's always on my Kindle.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one of my concerns going into this was on your Kindle app, it'll say how many days in a row you've read and how many weeks in a row you've read. But I'm on I don't even know how many weeks, 200 and something weeks in a row of reading.
Reading streak gives you your stats.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to lose that streak. But then I was like, who cares? That's such a stupid thing to worry about or whatever. I don't care if it's a streak on some random app or whatever. So actual book.
And I remember you being like, I don't have a book. And I was like, look in our office. The shelves are covered in books. I was like, pick one and just read it in the next month. I did have a paper book that I'd ordered that wasn't available on Kindle that had been sitting there on my desk for quite a while being like, I'll read that someday. So mine is Cells, Gels, and the Engines of Life by Gerald Pollack, which is all about the fourth phase of water and some weird biochemical shit. Super interesting and written in a really neat way of explaining cell biology, which that sounds worse than it actually is. It's an interesting book.
That doesn't sound appealing at all.
And then off of the shelf in the office, you picked
Dopamine Nation, which is actually something I've been wanting to read. I read another book about dopamine. The name escapes me.
The Molecule of More, Daniel Z. Lieberman's book.
Yeah.
Molecule of More, yeah. Also a great book.
Also a good book. I'm really cheap when it comes to buying books. For some reason, I just don't like spending money on books. I don't know why. So I always just go with whatever's on Kindle Unlimited. But you have no problem buying books. So there's tons of books available. Most of them are weird cells and gels and whatever stuff I'm not going to read. But yeah, this is one that I've been wanting to do. So Dopamine Nation by Anna Lembke. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really good. It's written by a psychologist. And she uses her experience with her clientele on dealing with addiction and how they escape it or don't escape it or whatever. But it's super interesting because it really does make you self-evaluate the things that you're potentially doing that are habitual, or maybe you think it's a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing. But yeah, they touch on all kinds of different stuff like cold plunging, which I'm super into. And they haven't gotten into exercise yet. I don't know if they will or not. But the one thing that they've been talking about that's really interesting is we have this pain-pleasure balance that we need within our body. And if you experience a lot of pleasure, often your body goes back to equilibrium by going through some pain. So if you get drunk, you have a super fun time, but then the next day you're hungover as your body's recovering from that abundance of pleasure sort of thing.
I call that borrowing fun from the future.
Yeah, exactly. For every up, there must be a down, which is why the come down or the hangover is such a prevalent thing. But then they said on the flip side of that, you can experience pain and you get a pleasure release out of that. So they're talking to a guy who was a cocaine addict, I guess, and ended up switching over to cold plunging because he said that torturing himself basically with a cold plunge for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, he would get this rush afterwards and just feel elevated for an hour afterwards. And so instead of doing Coke and having the same sort of high and then low, he would cold plunge multiple times a day. And he said it felt great.
Seems pretty harmless. I don't know. Sure.
For sure. And he was like, it was funny because I cold plunge as well. And he was comparing the high he felt from cold plunging to doing MDMA or cocaine. And I was like, I do not get that at all.
It's not that good.
It's good. I feel great afterwards, but it's definitely not like being high on drugs. It's certainly another level. But it is interesting that you can put yourself through a difficult situation and you reap the benefits afterwards. And I'm hoping that they're going to move that towards difficult exercise, because that's what a lot of people get when they work out, is they feel horrible in the workout, but then afterwards they get that rush and it just feels great afterwards.
Yeah. When you were describing this like pleasure and pain teeter-totter thing, I was like, isn't that exactly what CrossFit is?
Yeah.
Right? Like it just hurts so bad. And, we were doing Tabata sprints the other day on the machines and people, they finish and they're rolling on the floor in pain. But then you're like, we're getting something out of it. We're getting some kind of reward-based psychology out of it, or we wouldn't keep doing it.
Yeah. There's definitely something. And it's like, they talk in the book about runner's high and that kind of thing, where you'll be running and uncomfortable, but then all of a sudden you get to a certain point where you just feel great, and you get into that flow state. And it's interesting stuff. I
think a lot of the things that drugs leverage are systems that exist endogenously, right? Like we have opiate receptors. We have the ability to make endogenous, like opiate type things like oxytocin that are supposed to be your love and bonding chemicals. And dopamine is like, people regard it as a reward chemical. It's more of a motivation and drive neurotransmitter. Serotonin is more of a calming. It's kind of the balance one that keeps you in the here and now and appreciates it, living in the moment. And even your cannabinoid receptors, like they don't exist because cannabis exists. They exist because you can endogenously make cannabinoids that can help you focus or reduce pain or like a variety of different things. So I think we've just discovered a lot of these chemicals or neurotransmitters or things that exist in the body because we found things from nature that hyperactivate them. Yeah. But they exist naturally. And so you can leverage those things naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. In some of the animal studies they've done, they'll remove the dopamine from animals, and sometimes these animals just will starve to death because they're they don't even have motivation to eat. They're just like nothing. They don't do anything and they just die. And it's a really interesting thing because dopamine is like all about drive, but it's never satisfied, and that's why anything that gives you a dopamine rush is such a like addictive thing, is that you never get it and you're like, good to go. It's always just like, more. And that's why drugs like cocaine are so more inducing, is like you take it and you just want to keep going. And even alcohol to some point, we were at a wedding recently and you just kind of keep drinking through the whole night. Most people just continue to drink throughout the whole night. And then often that ends up going too far. And next thing you know, you're passed out or throwing up or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, dopamine's an interesting one because it's all drive. It's never going to be satisfied,
But that's where serotonin kicks in. Serotonin is like the counterbalance to that, is that makes you content in the here and now, and the calming neurotransmitter acts on the opposite receptors. And you need both.
You do.
Yeah. I'm actually writing a series of articles for the CrossFit email of the day. It's on protein. It's an extension of the primer on protein that I wrote for the CrossFit Medical Society that I expanded into 6 parts. And it's funny, I wasn't even thinking of this before we sat down, but one of the parts is on your neurotransmitters, on dopamine and serotonin, and the protein requirements for both. They're both built out of amino acids. Dopamine's built out of tyrosine and serotonin is built out of tryptophan, both of which you can get them from your food. And that if you have a low protein intake, that imbalanced neurotransmitters is one of the potential side effects of protein malnutrition.
Right.
Depression being a big one.
Yeah.
Lack of both motivation and drive, which is characteristic of depression, and lack of contentment and happiness and feelings of satisfaction. So it's both. And
it's kind of a vicious cycle where you're lacking certain nutrients, and so you feel bad, and then you feel bad, so you just want to eat shitty junk food to try to make yourself feel better. But then you continue to limit the nutrients coming in, you continue to feel bad, and it's just ongoing.
The downward cycle.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, question from the community. Somebody submitted this one to me and said, what do you know about gout?
I don't know anything about gout.
I guess tee that one up to me. What is gout? Gout is a form of arthritis that tends to accumulate in the joints of, particularly people know it as the big toe, sometimes the thumbs and stuff. It stems from an accumulation of uric acid crystals in the joint that cause this painful gouty arthritis. I think the myth out there is that it's associated with a high red meat intake. The research shows that that's not the case. So uric acid is created as a byproduct, a breakdown product from purines. 18 million years ago, the primates in our line of evolution had a uricase enzyme, and we lost that enzyme, the uricase mutation. Elevated uric acid comes from mostly the metabolism of fructose in the liver. Fructose causes a turnover of ATP, the energy molecule of the cell, adenosine triphosphate. When the 3 phosphates break off and what's left is adenosine, that gets broken down into uric acid. That's one of the purines. So in the modern world, when we eat a fucking ton of sugar is glucose and fructose stuck together, or worse and more so in the US, high fructose corn syrup, which is just unbound fructose. The liver has to deal with all that. It causes this rapid turnover of ATP. When ATP has been used up, it can go down one of 2 pathways. It can get recharged or rebuilt, or it can get broken down and excreted. When we go too much down the pathway of getting broken down and excreted, we create a ton of uric acid. We don't have the enzyme to break it down, so it needs to get excreted. There's a maximum amount of organic acid transporters in the kidney that can excrete it. If that gets exceeded, this excess uric acid builds up, and it's left floating around to accumulate in the soft tissues and of your joints in the connective tissue.
Right.
It's also associated with the breakdown of yeast from things like beer and too much bread. So beer, bread, fructose are the major contributors to elevated uric acid. Uric acid can also go up when you first start a ketogenic diet. So beta-hydroxybutyrate is an organic acid, and when it's getting excreted rather than used by the tissues until they upregulate their ability to metabolize those ketone bodies, those are also needing to get excreted, and they're competing with uric acid. So sometimes people can have a gout flare when they first start a ketogenic diet, which is, we would understand why that happens. There are medications people will take when they have gout to break down the excess uric acid. So this person that was asking had been having some painful joint issues, but this is a person, and the first thing I said was, have you had your uric acid levels tested? And I would put money on they would not have elevated uric acid. Usually you would see that associated with really poor diet, therefore metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes and poor liver and kidney function. This is a healthy person with an otherwise good diet, so it's probably related to something else. But in answer to the question, what do I know about gout?
That's it.
That's it. It's a problem of having too much uric acid, and it's mostly related to a diet too high in sugar, beer, and or bread.
I don't know why, but for me, the word gout is like moist to some people.
It's like just a gross word. Like
just a gross
mine
word.
is gals. Hey, gal, what are you gals up to? It's just a gross word. Some words just feel wrong in your,
they do,
in
yeah.
your mouth.
I don't like to say it. It's
gout.
just gout. It's uncomfortable.
Gout.
Yeah. Moist. A lot of people are bothered by moist.
Yeah, that was like an internet meme for a while there. Okay, so this kind of goes back to the dopamine thing. Mm-hmm. We were talking about exercise and the hit you get from high intensity exercise. We've been having a lot of, you and I have nerdy conversations about things all the time, like intensity.
Yeah.
On the podcast, outside the podcast, we've had a ton of discussions about like intensity drives results. That's one of the key tenets of CrossFit. But then we say CrossFit is constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity. What do we mean by that exactly? Right. How high? High is a relative term. High relative to what? Is there a difference between high intensity and max intensity? And how much is too much intensity has been this topic of conversation lately.
Yeah. And we've been CrossFitting for 16 years. And this is the first time I've ever really considered what we mean by high intensity. Mm-hmm. So a little, I'm late for the meeting, I guess, but
there's always things to think on.
Yeah. It stems because I didn't have a great summer of training. We were away and busy and just stuff. And you know how life takes over. Everybody, I think, has a pretty tough summer. And in trying to get back into things and, do the thing and work out consistently and stuff, I've been trying to come to more classes, and I certainly try harder when I go to classes. And I've just been noticing lately that on the days where I'm doing a pretty sprinty kind of WOD, I go hard. I've always hit it just as hard as I can, and I'll wreck myself for sure. Like I'll be like laid on the ground, trying not to die. Everybody else is cleaned up and gone home, and the lights are off, and the guy's sweeping and I'm still laying on the floor, just like trying to recover. Right? it's like that sort of scenario. So, and I was saying to you, I don't know what to do about this because I'm literally like fucked for an hour after these workouts and I have stuff I have to do. The other day we did one where it was just like Tabata sprints and I was supposed to get up on a ladder and change lights and do some stuff. And I literally couldn't. I was like, I cannot safely climb a ladder right now. I will absolutely die. And so we kind of like, you know, recently started talking about this because I was like, what am I supposed to do? I know you need to try hard and I know you're supposed to maximize the intensity to get the full benefit of it. But when it literally ruins the rest of my day, like what do I do? Right. Mm-hmm. So I was feeling fairly frustrated with it. But that's what brought up the question is, okay, well, what is relative intensity? Mm-hmm. And you said anything that's 75% and up is high intensity. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, you know, like I was thinking 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know,
max intensity.
For sure.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some wiggle room in there to still try really hard, but also not ruin your day.
Yeah. I think, okay, so at the level 1, we draw the 3 energy pathways. The phosphagen lasts 10 seconds or less, and that's your max power output, the most power you can generate, but it craps out at 10 seconds. That's all your 1 rep max lifts. Max anything, clean and jerk, deadlift, whatever. You can also do a fast 40. Then you have the glycolytic pathway. It peaks at about a minute, craps out by about 2 minutes. That's your, 500 meter row, 400 meter sprint, that kind of stuff. And then you have the oxidative pathway that just theoretically goes on forever until you die. Just sitting here existing in life, we're in the oxidative pathway. CrossFit, we want to be good in all 3. The whole takeaway from that thing is, hey, we want to be good short, medium, and long. We want to be good at short, high power output things. We want to be good at long endurance things. And we want to be good at that, medium power. The peak power of the phosphagen pathway is 100%. The peak power of the glycolytic pathway is about 70. And then oxidative is about 40% of your max power. And in CrossFit, you will find a characteristic of CrossFit style workouts is that we tend to live in that glycolytic pathway that exists at about 70%. Mm-hmm. We do 1 rep maxes, we do heavy lifts sometimes, we go long sometimes, but you don't get nearly the benefit to your fitness from doing those 2 things that you do by living in the glycolytic pathway. Glycolytic has 1 foot in each. So you get some peak power benefits, you get some endurance benefits. So it's like bang for your buck living there. But that means that when we say high intensity, and honestly, this was something that until I was working on seminar staff, and I think maybe it was Pete Shaw said that, well, high intensity is anything's over like 70. And I was like, oh yeah, duh. Yeah. I don't know why I never thought of it that way. Because in the world of weightlifting, we consider a working set anything over about 70%. Anything below that is considered a warm up or loading set. Right. Right. So that's pretty standard in the world of strength training.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a spectrum as with everything. And I got thinking about this more that we were talking about it. And I feel like if you do a workout and you finish the workout and you can immediately start to take your plates away and go and put all your bars down and just continue on with your day, that is a low intensity workout, right? Where you don't even need to recover. You're fine. You're just like good to go. You probably undershot, right? You probably didn't go heavy enough or fast enough or whatever. If you were like I was recently and it took you an hour to scrape yourself off the floor, that's like maximum intensity. So trying to find that middle ground where you need some recovery time, you can hop on a bike or hop on a row and just super slow, try to move or just walk around or whatever, but you're not even worried about putting stuff away or logging your WOD on the whiteboard or whatever. You're just kind of like recovering.
You need a minute.
Yeah, you need a minute, but it's only a few minutes. It's not an hour. Yeah. That's the good place to live.
Mm-hmm. And I think, so then we go, well, how often should you touch max intensity? Because we certainly need to do that. One of the ways we do that is through 1 rep max lifts, which how often do we max out? Not that often, right? Every quarter, maybe. So a few times a year. How often do you touch max power output in terms of a Fran or a Tabata, that feeling where it takes you an hour to peel yourself off the floor? I think that's athlete dependent, but not more than once a week.
Oh, definitely not.
A couple times a month, maybe. Do you need to do that?
Yeah.
You don't need to shotgun blast yourself into a brick wall 5 or 6 days a week. Yeah. I'm pretty sure if anybody even tried to do that, you'd be burnt out in 6 weeks and you'd quit. That's just unsustainable.
More often than not, if I have a day where I full send and I am like wrecked afterwards for quite a while, the next day I don't even want to work out. I'm just like, I just can't, I need a day, and it seems to be that the older I get, the harder it is for me to push the intensity consistently. I used to be able to work out 5-6 days a week for sure. And now I feel better at 3 or 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. But if I try to hammer all 4 or 5 of those days, it's not going to happen, Mm-hmm. So it's always the battle. So really what it comes down to is there just needs to be some onus on the athlete. Mm-hmm. The athlete needs to be the one who, because you know how you feel, you know how many days in a row you've worked out, you know what's going on in your life, if you're sleeping well, if you've been eating poorly, if you just got hammered last night and you're a little bit hungover, you're the one that is in charge of all of those things. So when you come into the gym, you need to be the one to be like, okay, today is not the day to shotgun blast myself into the wall. Today is the day where I'm going to no more than 70% for sure. And then being smart enough to pay attention to what your body's telling you, train for the long run, not for today. I don't care about tomorrow. I'm only going to focus on today. Mm-hmm. You have to be the one that's taking that burden.
I will say a counterpoint to that. The average gym goer has never experienced, or I will say maybe even has no concept of what true max intensity even is or feels like, or how to do it. A true 1 rep max lift, truly recruiting innervating every muscle fiber for a maximum power output, truly shotgun blasting yourself into the wall. I would say most people have really only ever touched 80 or 90% of their max power availability. And so then if you're the max you've ever experienced is an 80 or 90 mm-hmm. and you're going at 80% of 80%, well, so I would say on average, most people need to be opening their eyes, gaining their confidence, and taking off the governor to even experience in the first place what a true maximum effort really is.
Yeah.
And then you can have the ability to decide to dial back from there. But most people that have never ever touched max intensity, and then they're like, well, I need to take it easy today. No, you don't. Yeah. Like, if anything, you need to be wrapping your head around gaining the confidence to truly, truly try hard one day.
For sure. And there's certainly different caliber of athletes. There's people in the gym who will never make a noise while lifting, it's just mm-hmm. like dead silence. And then today you were squatting in our garage and I was sitting there chatting with you. And when you were doing your last set, you scared the shit out of me. You were so loud with your just grinding, clearly a maximum effort push on your last rep. And I even said afterwards, oh geez, that was scary. But that's just when you're truly maximum intensity, you cannot control it. It just sort of happens, right? It's like me when I just destroy myself doing Tabata, whatever, and I literally can't get up off the floor and just go back to doing stuff. I need time to recover.
Mm-hmm. And I would say there's different ways of experiencing what intensity is. There's maximum neural drive for a 1 rep max squat, deadlift, clean and jerk, that kind of stuff. There's maximum power output, but super low skill in a Tabata, bike, row, even a burpee to some extent. Then there's really high intensity volume, but the things that tend to make you really sore, like a lot of pull-ups, a lot of wall balls.
Yeah, wall balls for sure.
Wall balls, lots of thrusters, things like that are requiring a lot of rapid and repetitive muscle contraction, and things that are high volume enough that leave you feeling sore.
Yeah, I think that the mistake that a lot of people make is that they're only cautious about weights. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, well, I'm just not feeling on today, so I'm not going to go heavy on the whatever. But they would happily try to do 150 wall balls, Yeah. And sometimes it's the volume of the lighter weights where you can keep pushing, even though your muscles are banged up, are way more hazardous. That's why GHD sit-ups are such a dangerous movement, because when you're doing them, they don't feel that bad, especially through your abs. You feel them mostly in your legs when you're doing them properly, and you can keep going. There's a little bit of a momentum to it. So you can just keep chipping away. And then the next thing you know, 3 days later, you can't stand up straight. You've completely destroyed your abs. So
belly's puffed out to here.
Yeah, it's the eccentric loading of the movement is just so destructive. So people often shy away from the weights, even though that would probably be the safer option. Mm-hmm. And instead they go light and fast on a WOD and get 20 rounds instead of 12 like everybody else, and end up doing way more volume than they should have. And that's that kind of excessive amount of volume that you just don't need.
I think a good point in there about intensity is that if you are a person that trains 4 to 6 days a week and you're not going to shotgun blast yourself into the wall with power output every day of the week, ways of controlling intensity is to choose the harder skill and to not scale, which sounds backwards because you go, well, but actually, and we've done the math in a previous episode, sometimes trying to do the full movement or the full weight slows you down enough that it reduces the power output, which is intensity. We measure intensity by power, force, distance, and time. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the goal might be you should slow down a little bit that day.
Yeah.
And maybe you're like, well, if I do all the pull-ups without a band, I'm going to go slower. And you're like, well, did you shotgun blast yourself into the wall yesterday? Maybe you should go slower today.
Yeah.
And then there's some training benefit to at some point you just got to start doing the thing. You know, we've said that many times, like pull-ups and push-ups. And at some point you just got to jump off the cliff and stop scaling those things. And, you know, AMRAPs are a good time to do that. Yeah. Choose something harder and lower the intensity, but improve your skills.
Yeah. And then know your limit, right? Let's say you decide you're going to go slower, but you're going to tough out full push-ups. And you get to the point where every push-up you're doing is a 1 rep max, like a 3-second ascent, just like slow and clearly your muscles are fried. You need to just know, okay, that's enough. Yeah. Any more that I do are going to be more harm than good. And I just need to either call it or I need to switch it up and do something different. Yeah, for sure. We've talked in length in the past about the best time to push it a little bit is the AMRAPs, where you've only got so much time. So you can ride the struggle bus for 7 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But if it's 83 reps, no time cap, then like that's the worst time to go for it and push it, because it could take you way longer than it should. And you get to that point where your body's just wrecked, done.
And I'll choose this opportunity to say again, CrossFit's charter for safety is mechanics first, then consistency, and then and only then intensity. We need intensity. It drives results. It's the thing. It's the independent variable, but it's earned. Intensity is earned. Mm-hmm. So the mistake of the novice coach and trainer is to skip the fundamentals and jump right to the sexy moves. Yeah. People trying to do handstand push-ups when they can't even do 20 push-ups or hold a plank for 2 minutes. You know, sorry to rain on your parade here a little bit, but you got some work to do first. Or trying to go too heavy on a lift they don't have the technique for it. You need to lift heavy. It's super important to your longevity and your well-being, but you need to earn that with good technique. That doesn't mean where you go, oh, my technique's not very good, therefore I'm just always going to squat light. I'll tell you what, that's not going to work out well for you later in life when you don't have enough muscle mass or bone density because you just were too lazy to improve your squat. You know, the programming can be amazing. The coaching can be amazing, but ultimately, like the ultimate roadblock where everything stops is the athlete. Yeah. Like you have to choose to have the buy-in to do the things, to show up consistently, to work on your technique, to stay mentally engaged in both improving your technique and trying hard. All those things, like the stop point, the barrier is the athlete itself. You can be in the, and congratulations, you are, if you're a member of BRIO, at the best gym, with the best coaches, at the best programming in the world. But if you don't show up or don't try hard or don't try to improve your technique or don't stay mentally engaged in what you're doing, it won't work very well. It'll work okay. Like even CrossFit done poorly improves fitness. Yeah. But it could work way better. Yeah. And it's up to you.
It's just playing the long game, right? You can either go maximum speed, maximum intensity, terrible form today, and like maybe train for a year or two like that and then hurt yourself and not be able to do that thing anymore. But you can like completely ignore your mobility needs and don't stretch and try to skip the warm up and just show up and do the thing at full send. You can do that for a while, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. Whereas if you just say, okay, like today we're doing snatches, I'm not a good snatcher. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. I'm going to go light enough that I'm not going to wreck myself and I can actually like do things properly. And yeah, that workout in that day is not going to be as hard, but you're now making productive progress, right? You're moving forward instead of risking falling off the ledge down the road. It's a test of patience for sure, because everybody likes to just feel like, yeah, I got a really good workout because I was super out of breath and super sweaty. Okay, but that was just today. What about tomorrow? What about the next day? Did you wreck yourself with horrible, ugly deadlifts and now you can't do anything? You can't bend over for the next week just to get sweaty and get out of breath, you know? What kind of progress are you making with that?
I think the thing I've seen in our experience most often of people that train with too much intensity, we think the risk is injury that takes people out of the game. I think it's actually just burnout. We've seen that at the highest level with the CrossFit Games athletes, of some of them that aren't specifically injured, but they're like mentally, it's like a hormonal imbalance that comes from overtraining. They're like, I just can't do it anymore. They're like, I just don't want to do it. And their mental health suffers from overtraining.
Rich Froning was on a podcast recently. It was probably his podcast. And he said, for the last 13 years, I've been beating the shit out of myself. And he's like, am I going to pay for it one day? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. He's been destroying his body for competitive CrossFit for 13 years. Like, there's there's no way that doesn't have consequences.
For sure.
For sure.
So all of this ties into, my problems with intensity lately. So what am I doing moving forward, right? And I know that I have to have times where I really push the envelope, but I definitely need to be smarter in when I do those types of things and how I do those types of things. I need to just go into it being like, okay, I have to do something this afternoon. I'm going to climb a ladder. I'm not going to 100% on these Tabata sprints. I'm going to go 70 or 80 or whatever. And I'm just going to start to play around with some variability in the level of intensity on some of the stuff that I do. I think we all have a good sense of how hard we should be pushing when we're doing a 20-minute AMRAP. Nobody is full send and then completely blows up and dies for the last 15 minutes. Most people are a little bit more strategic and a little bit more ease into it, work at a pace that you can challenge yourself but maintain. And I just need to, find that level for the shorter sprintier types of things while still feeling like I'm actually working out and I'm actually trying hard.
Mm-hmm. And you still got to touch that intensity a few times a year. I think, like I said, the average person needs to truly do some soul searching to even get there in the first place, to know what that is, and then to know how to back off 10% from that. I remember the most freeing thing I ever did in CrossFit was I would always be doing these sprints on, you name it, the treadmill, the rower, the bike or whatever. And I'd be like, I got to slow down. I'm going to throw up. And I remember going into, it was 500 meter repeats one day on the rower. And I was like, I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try to make myself puke today. I'm just going to see what that line is. And I just threw that fear. It's just a little fear, a little voice in the back of your head being like, stop, slow down. Something bad's going to happen. And I was kind of called that fear out, called it on its bluff. And I was like, let's do it then. Let's just see what it is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. As hard as I possibly wanted to try, I could not make myself puke in that workout. And so then I know that even when that little evil gremlin on my shoulder is being like, stop, slow down, it's too much. It's not, I'm not even close to the actual limit yet because I've barely even tapped into my ability to go there.
Yeah.
And so what feels hard and uncomfortable is not legitimately 100% effort.
For sure.
It's so hard to get there. So I don't want the takeaway from this thing to be most people should slow down. Nuh-uh.
Yeah. Most people should speed up. Most people need to try harder.
Yeah.
But the people that are banged up and feeling wrecked afterwards, it's there can be some strategy and all of that. For me, if it's something like thrusters or whatever, that gremlin is real controlling. For sure, the intensity is going to be low because I just listened to the gremlin and put the damn bar down. But if it's any of these low skill, burpee, whatever, Tabata row sprints, that kind of stuff where there's nothing that slows me down, I can go pretty fast and I can put up some pretty good scores, but then I just feel the effects afterwards. So it's finding the balance of a little bit of this and a little bit of that and trying to feel good about the whole process.
And we make the point that intensity is relative to the individual, relative to the individual's physical and psychological tolerances. And on certain things and at certain times, those two things can be different. You might have your physical tolerance is low, but your psychological tolerance is high. You can try so hard that you can leave yourself incapacitated on the floor. Your psychological tolerance exceeded your physical tolerance. Many people are the other way around. Their psychological tolerance for discomfort is just low, but their physical capabilities are actually much higher than they think. And that also those two numbers are not static. They're dynamic day to day.
Sure.
So that can fluctuate with the stress you're under, how much sleep you've had, your nutrition, something we haven't touched on in terms of, how well you move or how much your joints hurt or what your mental health or your recovery or motivation is. That's all nutrition, right? Yeah. So if you're I work out so I can eat whatever I want. I'm sorry, that is not going to work. Yeah. You're going to ruin your joints and your mental health in the process of doing that. Guaranteed, Yeah.
It'll catch up with you eventually.
It'll catch up with you. You cannot do that. That's not a plan that works. So with the fundamental question being how much intensity is too much intensity, or how much intensity do we want? Only as much as increases work capacity across broad time and modal domains. That's what we call fitness across the years of your life. We've said the word long-term several times in the course of this conversation. So we're not concerned with jacking up fitness in the next 90 days or 6 months or a year. We're in this for the long term. We create health. That's what health is, work capacity across the years of your life. So then how much intensity do we want? Only as much as increases health, work capacity across the years of your life. If you train with too much intensity and it makes you sick or injured or mentally burned out, or you quit CrossFit, that's too much.
Yeah.
Right. And if you aren't really increasing your work capacity across broad time and modal domains because you don't train with enough intensity, or you eat like shit, or you drink too much, or whatever, then that's also a problem, right? Then you're also not creating health for yourself for the future. So this ties into the next thing we want to talk about, which is tracking your workout results.
Weird.
So there are several reasons why tracking your results is important and why that's a key feature of CrossFit.
Yeah. And we've been using Beyond the Whiteboard for, 12 years, like forever.
I think 2012, maybe we started using it.
Super long time. So we have a ton of history in the app, and it's a difficult thing for some people because you have your ups and your downs throughout your fitness career, especially if you start when you're in your 20s and you're killing it and your PRs aplenty and everything's feeling great. And then you have a baby. And it's like, well, you're not going to continue to PR.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right after that baby, right? So people will often shy away from logging it because they don't want to face the reality of their current level of fitness, which is such a hilarious thing to do. It's like putting your head in the sand and just pretending that there's not a war going on around you. You know, it's like you have to just be honest with yourself and be upfront. As a programmer, the best thing about the Beyond the Whiteboard tracking is that I can look and see where everybody's at. And there's a little icon that comes up if somebody's hit a PR or improved on a time or a workout or whatever. And I can see all of that. So if we do a repeat workout, I can look at the scoreboard and be like, oh, I got 12 PRs on this workout. So even if you don't give a shit, which is fine, it helps me to know what we're doing is working, you know? Or if somebody is looking for themselves and they can see they're on a downward trajectory, it's a hard word to say, trajectory, they can be like, okay, what's going on? Well, I stopped eating meat. So, maybe that's a thing. Or I haven't been sleeping well. Or, oh, weird, I just had a baby. You know, there's all kinds of variables that can happen that you can start to now pay attention to. So it's a super valuable tool. And it's something that we include within the membership. So
yeah, we pay for Beyond the Whiteboard on behalf of everybody.
Yeah.
We've had it for a long time, and we maybe haven't been as good at making sure that everybody was using it consistently. And we've had a hybrid paper logbook / app system going on, but we're making a bigger push to make sure everyone's on Beyond the Whiteboard and using it and logging their stuff.
Yeah.
It stemmed from, we're in the middle of a strength program right now. The fall, people are back to training more consistently. This is when we can put some effort into, like, how to make people stronger is pretty well established. You use linear progressions, you need some consistency, and you build and blah, blah, blah. But again, back to, like, it requires some effort on the part of the athlete. It can be the best program and it can be the best coaching and whatever, but if the implementation is poor on the part of the athlete, the program fizzles.
Yeah.
So I always coach Tuesday mornings on the squats. I overhear two people sharing a rack for the presses and the squats. And one guy says to the other, what'd you get up to last week in terms of the weight? And the other guy goes, I don't remember. And I was like, oh, motherfucker. And I was like, you're not supposed to remember. You're supposed to keep track. You're supposed to write it down or log it.
Yeah.
Nobody's expecting you to remember your weights on every single weight and every single set, every single week. That's why we have tools for this. And so that you can't just show up and bumble your way through every week going, I don't know what I did last week. I don't know if I'm building. I don't know if I'm getting any fitter. I don't know if this is working or I'm making progress. Like,
Yeah.
That's not what we do here. Like, one of the differentiating factors of CrossFit is that fundamentally we're dedicated to the quantification of fitness. We defined what fitness is in a measurable way. It's power output, force, distance, and time. No other fitness program had ever done that before.
Yep.
And then we said something so brave and controversial as, hey, if we're selling fitness, people should be getting fitness. Yeah. Like, if the program is good, people will be getting better.
Yeah.
And when we see improvements in work capacity across broad time and modal domains, what that means is your weights are going up and your times are coming down and the amount of work you can do in an AMRAP is improving.
Yeah.
We don't have to do Newtonian physics on everything. We just need to see that you're making progress. Your physical capabilities are a biomarker of your health. Your deadlift, your mile time, your grip strength, those are biomarkers of your health in the same way that you should go to your doctor and, you know, get your HbA1c checked and get your fasting insulin checked and get your waist measurement done and your blood pressure taken. And those are all biomarkers of health, predictors of how well things are going to go for you in the future.
Yeah.
If you go to your doctor and you get some checkup numbers and they're not good, you would want to know why. And you would hopefully want to try to make some improvements.
Yeah.
But if you know that things are not good right now. And you're like, I'm just not going to go to the doctor because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's not productive.
Yeah,
And if you're like, I know my fitness is really bad right now, so I'm just not going to log it. I'm not going to keep score of anything because I don't want to know. Listen, I've been there. I get it. I was super depressed after I had DASH and my fitness was just in the toilet. I was mad and in a bad headspace about it. But now I'm super glad that I did log all those terrible workouts and be on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
So I can see that the changes that I put in place to improve my health, which is my fitness across the years of my life, worked.
Yeah.
I see that what I did worked. I made major changes to my nutrition when Dash was about 6 months old because I saw that my performance was all crap and I knew I needed to do something different. So I tried something and I measured the results and it made things better. And now I have 8 years of data since that low point. And at times things have gone up and down. I knew in that going back to school to do a master's degree would come at some sacrifice. And so I wasn't expecting to make a lot of progress in my fitness, but I was trying to hold steady through those 3 years of dedicating more of my time to education. And that's fine, but I shouldn't be going, I just can't figure out why I haven't PR'd my friend time. It's like, well, I know exactly why I haven't PR'd my friend time because I haven't put the work in and I'm dedicating my effort to this other thing for now. I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong if progress is stagnant for a period of time, but you should know why and you should have a plan for that.
Yeah. And I think it's just being aware of your current state. Okay, so let's say you started CrossFit when you're 25 and you had all these PRs and everything, and now you're 35, and it's discouraging to look back and see, oh, well, I'm not what I used to be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about what happened 10 years ago. It matters about what's currently happening right now. Because there's been periods of time where, yeah, my lifts were the heaviest they ever were, but I also weighed like 200 pounds. So my pull-ups were shit. I could barely burpee because I was like in my bulking thing. Yeah. And so you only pay attention to that one component. Yeah, I was a lot stronger, but I was way slower.
Less fit.
And so you log a workout and be on the whiteboard and it says, oh, this is 600 pounds less weight lifted than the last time you did this one like a year ago or whatever. And you're like, oh, woe is me. But then the next time you do that thing, even if you're heavier than your last time, it'll say this is now 100 pounds more than the last time you did that workout. So it's not comparing it to your all-time best. It's just comparing it to the most recent one of those. So you're going to have some fluctuations. That's totally fine. The reality is when we say today you should use 50% of your best deadlift and you're using your all-time best deadlift that you haven't lifted for 10 years, you're using the wrong weights, which means you're getting the wrong stimulus. You're risking injuring yourself more just because you're using some out-of-date number that is no longer relevant. So you want to have those, new versions of yourself to be able to compare to.
And for that reason, people that don't necessarily have a lifetime PR in them for things like the CrossFit total will often just chicken out and not show up that day. And then you're like, well, guess what? Now you don't have a current sense of what your current strength is because your little baby ego couldn't handle that it's maybe not the best of your whole life. And then your training in the whole next phase suffers because you don't know I don't know what I can squat right now. Well, why not? Because I was too scared to show up for CrossFit Total Day because I didn't want to know. That's the sticking your head in the sand or not going to the doctor because you don't want to know the answer. CrossFit is so hard on your ego. It's so hard on your ego.
Yeah.
And at so many opportunities, you have to be so humble.
But if you want to be a better person, you have to do hard things. You have to. That's the reason that the average person is just average is because they're not willing to do hard things.
Yes.
Don't be average, be better. Yeah. Do the hard thing. Acknowledge that you're not as fit as you once were and then own up to why and then make those changes to make it better. The other thing with Beyond the Whiteboard is like, first of all, it's super convenient when you do have one of those recent numbers in because every time we plug in a percentage or whatever, it'll tell you what weight you're supposed to use.
It does math for you.
Which is great. But then the other thing that's a bit of a negative that we've all gone through is it'll also rank certain things like throughout the world. It'll say,
percentile.
This is 16th percentile fitness. And you see that and you're like, oh my God, that's so sad. But that's like the same Kindle thing. Like how many weeks in a row have you read on a Kindle? It doesn't fucking matter because half the numbers that are in there, people lie or people make mistakes, right? They write in reps instead of rounds and they're the 99th percentile on something, even though they just incorrectly logged it and nobody noticed or corrected it for them. Or B, you're comparing yourself to some of the best athletes in the world. Yeah. There's like some of the games athletes used to be on the whiteboard. And so obviously they're going to skew the numbers a whole bunch. There's some power lifters that put lifts in there where you're like, well, Jiminy Christmas, I'm never going to squat a freaking 1,000 pounds, but does it matter? Do I care if I'm 99th percentile on a squat? No, like not at all. That's not an important thing to worry about.
Yeah. And again, don't let your little baby ego get in the way because you can't see that other people are better than you.
Yeah.
You know, and you shouldn't stop measuring your own progress and your own results because other people are better than you. Like, you know,
and just like all that we're looking for is improvement from day to day. Are you on a good trajectory? And if not, what do we need to do to get you on a good trajectory? Do you need to sleep more? Do you need to eat better? Do you need to train a little harder? Do you need to scale back the volume? There's all kinds of little levers we can pull to try to make the process more effective.
Yeah. And I think once you have data, and take your pick. You're like, I'm going to try not eating bread for 6 weeks. I don't care. Pick whatever you want and try it, do it, observe the results. And you're like, oh, hey, like X, Y, and Z got better. I think I'm going to keep doing that. Or I'm going to try taking creatine and it makes no difference whatsoever. And you're like, well, never mind. Not going to spend my money on that. And so you might try some things that make no difference. You'll try some things that are tremendously different. And, you know, back to the like no phones in the bedroom, or we like to challenge ourselves to try or do or go without different things. Like the first night of not having my phone in my bedroom gave me anxiety. I don't know why, but I was like, oh, I really look forward to my little quiet time with my phone. And sometimes I scroll the internet and laugh at funny things. It's probably my little stupid hits of dopamine.
Yep.
But I was like, oh, I feel like weird feelings in my belly about putting it in the kitchen and then just going to bed, you know? But that's the doing hard things, getting in the cold plunge or changing your diet or not having a glass of wine every night. I've gone through challenges of no coffee for a while. And there's some people that are just like, look, I could never, you know, and you're like, yes, you could. And to be honest, the more you try things and see that you'll be fine, the more confidence you gain in yourself to know that many things could happen to you and you'll be fine. Yeah. And I've lived a very good, cushy life, you know, so I feel like I almost artificially have to challenge myself to things that suck so that someday things will suck. And I at least will have some level of preparation for that. So it doesn't hit me like a truck, which it probably will anyway, but I'm going to try my best.
Yeah, it always does. I think old age hits like a truck no matter what.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing my best to stave that off.
I guess the secret to that is to soften the descent, right? Do what you can to soften the descent. Like eventually we all get old. And you get to the point where you're just like, death's knocking at your door. You can't escape it, but I guess you can soften the descent.
And as you're looking at your results, and the longer we do this, like we're a long-term CrossFit affiliate, we are dedicated to creating health, which is fitness across the long term. I don't care about competitive excellence in the slightest. You can go do it for fun, but it's not what we're about. You have to be also honest with yourself about what phase of life you're in. Are you in your peak anabolic years of like your teens, 20s, maybe into your mid 30s? Awesome. Go hard. Gather as much adaptation and fitness as you can. Are you in your holding pattern years, 40, 50s, you know, you're just trying to hold steady? Or are you in your drawdown years where whatever health pension account you managed to build up for yourself, you're drawing down on it by like your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like just like you would save for retirement, earlier the better. The closer it gets to retirement, the more risk averse you need to be. And then you're in your income generating drawdown phase. It's like exactly the same when it comes to your health and fitness. So they call it training age. Like how many years have you been training? If you never trained in your life and you start CrossFit at 57, you will get better, because if you start from negative nothing, you'll see improvements. If you started CrossFit at 27 or 17, you will probably not still be seeing improvements at 57. Yeah. Which is a function of how it is. And all of that stuff is like, it's fine. It just is reality. It's just a part of maturing and checking your ego and just accepting the state of reality.
Yeah. I think as far as the numbers go, like for me, if I was to compare my snatch right now to my all-time snatch, it's going to be like 40 or 50 pounds less, right? But then just recently we did a workout from maybe a year or two ago, and I think I PR'd by 2 reps or something like that, which is cool. It's a neat little 2 reps. It's not a big deal, but it's still better than it was. But then we had another one recently where it was from 10 years ago, and I was like 5 seconds slower. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool that like from 10 years ago, like I've aged 10 years in that time, and I'm still able to be pretty close to the same amount of time on that workout. So even though you're going to have some things that go here, there's going to be others that come up, and, you know, it just kind of moves all over.
And people love the heavy lifts, right? They
Sure.
love the PRs of that stuff. But I think what Beyond the Whiteboard really helps you do is it categorizes all aspects of fitness. Strength is only one.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing. There were times where I could snatch and clean and jerk certainly more than I can right now, but I've held steady at like 80 to 85% of those numbers. But also my body composition is healthier right now. I can do more toes to bar. My handstand push-ups are better. There's a variety of things that are better. My double unders are better. So I would say, and I could look at the numbers, but I think I'm probably fitter now than I was when my peak lifts were stronger.
Yeah.
I've held pretty steady on those things and managed to bring up a bunch of other stuff. Beyond the Whiteboard in the app is cool, but if you go on the desktop version, it shows you all this cool stuff about all the domains of fitness and which ones are good and which ones are deficient and where you should put your effort. And it really, if you like to nerd out on data type stuff, Beyond the Whiteboard is super cool for that.
Yeah. I think you just have to pay attention. You just have to be aware. If you only focus on the bad, then it's just going to seem like everything's bad. But if you're actually paying attention to what you're doing and the work you're putting in by logging your results, then you're going to see that there's some good.
Yeah.
We had one girl who she has a long-term back injury since like from before she even started CrossFit, and it's been acting up again. She's the type of girl that likes to lift heavy weights, hasn't been able to lift heavy weights lately for a lot of the different movements because her back's just been flared up. But then the other day, we were doing a workout. We were doing a workout with strict handstand push-ups. And I remember a time where she couldn't do one, like not a single one. She could do kipping ones, but not a single strict one. And she was linking like sets of 8 or 10 or so. And I remember going over to her being like, that's come a long way. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And she was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And you can find the things you can still work on and you can get excited about. And it's not just about the heaviest lift or whatever. There's all kinds of different stuff you can work on.
Mm-hmm. And you should be feeling validated for when you are showing up consistently and properly applying intensity and managing your nutrition and seeing results. If you're paying for a fitness program, you should be getting fitness out of it that lasts you your lifetime, fit forever.
Yeah. And remember, fitness doesn't just happen in the gym. It's the effort in the gym. It's what happens outside of the gym to support the effort in the gym. You have to sleep. You have to eat well. You cannot drink all the time. You just have to take care of yourself. That's part of the process.
You have to walk.
Yeah.
That's just part of being a person that values yourself.
Yeah. Don't be average. Be better.
Yeah. Good message. The 1%.
Yeah.
The new 1%.
That's right.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. See you in the next one.
See you guys.